I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we'll just kind of, I have a few minutes of announcements at the beginning just to give time to for people to filter in as viewer 603. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Well, I guess first I just want to say welcome to everybody who showed up. Thank you so much for being here tonight. This is our online event, Everything You Want to Know About the ACA exam. We're going to learn about the exam, what it is, why it's important, how we can prepare for it in order to pass it, in order to become a certified archivist. We'll learn more about what it means to be a certified archivist and what that helps us with in our professional development. I know the semester is starting to get busy, so I just want to thank you guys for showing up and taking the time to join us tonight. And I want to share with you some of the things that are coming up for us. You guys will have a first heads up on this. They're not announced yet, but we will be announcing them soon. We have a couple of events, an online event coming up, Business Archives, A View from the Field, and that's going to be coming up on February 26th, so just a couple weeks from now. We're going to be talking to business archivists and corporate archivists. It's going to be a panel discussion, and we'll hear from kind of a variety of different kinds of businesses too. So I think that's going to be really interesting. We'll have a chance to ask questions and kind of learn about the day-to-day professional life of some people who are doing this kind of work. We also have a visit to Cal Poly in Pomona coming up on March 25th, which we're kind of excited about. So if any of you are down in the Southern California area, Los Angeles, San Diego, I encourage you to look for our announcements about that, and we'll have a registration go up in a good amount of times for people to kind of register and prepare for that and have that on their calendar. So that's March 25th. One date that we are still not sure about yet, but we're finalizing the date here, and we'll have an announcement go up as soon as we can about our visit to the Huntington Library, which is kind of an annual thing for us, and really looking forward to it. It's going to be really exciting. Again, it's another Southern California area event. Also, Archioda, I just want to mention, is our student run publication. So we will be accepting submissions and article proposals pretty much all semester. So if you have any ideas, please reach out and get in touch with us. You don't have to be a member of SAASC in order to submit. It's open to all iSchool students. So if you have an idea but you're unsure about it, please just reach out, get in touch with us. We'll talk you through the submission process. We're very open to ideas, and we'll do our best to help you kind of shape your idea into an article. And publishing is great for your e-portfolio, and it's not bad for your resume. So just don't be shy, reach out to us and feel free to ask us questions about that. Also, I know it's a long way off, but we will be having our executive committee elections again in April. And I know, like I said, it's a long way off, but I just want to put the seeds in your minds now that just so you can start considering whether you might want to serve on the board for next year. I myself, I was kind of nervous to get involved this year, but it's been such a great experience, and I really highly recommend it to anybody who's thinking about wanting experience with leadership. So if you want to talk about it, reach out. Our email here is sjsusaasc@gmail. You can find out more about Archioda and our events as we kind of finalize dates and put out announcements. Those will be on our website, sjsusaasc.weebly.com. And that's kind of it for my announcements. The other thing I want to mention, questions and answers. We're going to have a session at the end feel free to post in the chat box if you have questions along the way. Our secretary, Annabelle, is going to be kind of collecting and monitoring those, and she'll make sure that your questions get answered at the Q&A session at the end. And I guess that's that. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest tonight, Dr. Mott Linn, who's currently the head of collection management at the Robert H. Goddard Library at Clark University, where he previously served as the coordinator of archives and special collections. Dr. Linn is a certified archivist and has served as the Academy of American Archivists treasurer and its president. While president, he served on the exam development committee and on the committee that reviews applications to take the exam. So he's very well qualified to talk to us tonight about this particular topic. ACA named him the 2018 Distinguished Service Award honoree. And Dr. Linn has also served on the Society of American Archivists as a member of the steering committee of the college and university section and chair of the archives management section. So Dr. Linn, just thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us tonight and talk to us about this. I'm going to go ahead and stop share here and let you share your slides. And take it away.
Come on. Nope. Come on. There we go. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for having me in. I hope that I can answer all your questions. I hope your semesters started off well. So thank you for this opportunity. At any rate, here to talk about the Academy of Certified Archivists. Our mission is that we support and promote the highest level of professional archival practice. We take a leadership role by defining the knowledge and abilities necessary to be a professional archivist. And we achieve our mission by certifying archivists, ensuring professional archival standards, and promoting the employment of certified archivists. Very quickie history. So the Society of American Archivists created us in the late 1980s. We opened up in the fall of 1989, and we currently have over 1,300 members. Benefits of certification. It offers a competitive advantage for jobs, provides an easily understood credential, gives employers an impartial tool for evaluating applicants, builds your confidence in your abilities, and strengthens the profession. All of these I've heard people mention at one time or another. You're looking at from the person who wants to get hired, but it's also, as that one bullet point says, it's a good thing for employers to have, because they can have confidence that the people who are certified archivists at least meet the basic standards of being a professional archivist, that you may or may not meet all the qualifications for a certain particular job, but at least the employer knows that you have what it takes to be a professional archivist in general. So this is a list of just a few of the employers who advertised jobs in this past year looking for certified archivists. You can see there's a wide range here. Again, there were many more than this. This just gives you a sample. You can see there's universities, there's government, there's religious organizations, a museum, and some businesses. And again, you can see that it's spread all over the country as well. So, there's a lot of people who are looking for certified archivists. And you can see that, these numbers pretty much mirror the industry as a whole, the profession as a whole. that there's over a third of us who are employed by academic institutions, almost a third by governmental institutions, and then some in religious, museum, corporate, self-employed, or other. So let's see here. Exam requirements. So you have to meet certain requirements to be allowed to sit for the exam, and there are 3 ways of doing it. There's 2 on this screen. One is that you have a master's degree, and you also have at least 3 courses about archives. I know that in your program, you have pre-qualified classes, ACA pre-qualified classes. So 3 of those, and you've got your 3 classes. That's not to say that classes that haven't been pre-approved won't count, but you're guaranteed that the ones that have been pre-approved will count. For example, if a visiting professor comes in and offers a course on a one-time basis, that in all likelihood isn't pre-approved, but that doesn't mean that we wouldn't accept it. What we would need to do is to look into, more about the class, what the requirements were, what the description of it was, before we decide whether or not we'd accept the class. But with your pre-approved classes, you definitely know that those are pre-approved, and those definitely will count for you to sit for the exam. So again, the one way is to have a master's degree, 3 classes, plus 1 year qualifying experience. Another way of being allowed to sit for the exam is to have a master's degree without that coursework, but instead of 1 year qualifying experience, you need 2 years qualifying experience. And to get into what the qualifying experience is so what we want to see in theory is 1 year full-time employment doing, professional archival work. However, as you can see in the footnote below, it doesn't have to be 1 full-time job. It could be 2 part-time jobs. It could be, I've known a few archivists who have gotten started whose job was half-time a reference librarian and half-time an archivist. Well, if you have 2 years at half-time as in a professional job, then that would certainly count towards your full-time. To get into it a little bit more, it must be professional work. Not the kind of work that a paraprofessional or non-professionals typically do. So we aren't looking for a job which has you do filing, no, but if you would instead be making finding aids, well, that's something that a professional archivist would do. And so that's the kind of thing we'd be looking for. And the other footnote, internships and volunteer work might qualify. It may not, it may, but again, it would have to consist of the work being of a professional nature. And if you're in that area, as the screen says, for further a further definition of what would meet these qualifications, what wouldn't, you really need to contact the Regent for Exam Administration. So those were 2 ways. The third way, and this is, I'm guessing, the way a lot of you would be qualifying for it, would be through the provisional status, provisional certification. This requires a master's degree with at least 3 archives-related classes, and you can apply before graduating, but you have to have graduated by the time you're taking the exam. So the exam this year is in August. You don't have to have graduated in May this year, but yeah, by August you have to have graduated with your 3 classes. The provisional status allows you to sit for the exam, and it does not require the professional work experience. at this time. So if you meet these qualifications, pass the exam, you're then you have provisional certification. You aren't fully certified, but at that point, you'd be able to tell potential employers, hey, look, once I get my 1-year professional experience, I'll be fully certified. I've got my provisional status now. Give me my professional job so that I can get my year of professional experience. So, yeah, after passing the exam, the candidate has 3 years to earn 1 year of professional experience. So again, it doesn't have to be, you know, 1 full-time year of professional experience. It can be spread out over multiple jobs, over multiple years. That's fine. You know, just gather that professional experience. And then during that time when you're provisional, you do not pay ACA dues. You start that when you become fully certified. So preparing for the exam. So a lot of what ACA does revolves around its role delineation statement. And the role delineation statement has 7 domains, or what you can think of as areas of expertise, that we consider that archival work falls somewhere in one of these 7 domains. This was the role delineation statement was created when we were founded and is updated once every 5 years to make sure that it is fully up to date with what's going on in the profession. So these are the 7 areas: selection, appraisal, and acquisition; domain 2, arrangement and description; domain 3, reference services and access; domain 4, preservation and protection; domain 5, outreach, advocacy, and promotion; domain 6, managing archival programs; domain 7, professional, ethical, and legal responsibilities. So we view everything that an archivist does fitting in there somewhere. And then within each of the domains, each domain is made up of multiple knowledge statements and multiple task statements. And all of this is in the exam handbook, which is on our website, freely downloadable. It's a PDF. Lots of good information there for preparing for the exam. Again, each domain subdivided into these areas, and knowledge statements describe generally what archivists need to know in order to complete each of the tasks. So a task, you can kind of guess what that is. You know, it's the actual thing an archivist does, and then knowledge statements, what archivists need to know. Now, the reason why I go into that is that, as I said, a lot of what ACA does revolves around the role delineation statement. And one of the things that revolves very closely to that is how the exam is created. So we hire a psychometrician, that is a testing expert, who leads 8 CAs on the exam development committee. There's 1 CA who leads the exam development committee, and each of the 7 others is in charge that year of one of the domains. So the year I was on the exam development committee, I was in charge of preservation and protection, the preservation and protection questions. People on the committee write questions that represent different parts of the RDS, and then add them to a bank of hundreds of questions. This is a very rigorous process. You're asked to come in with 5 questions for your domain, and most of them end up, even though people think that they've written a good question, most of them end up not being used and most of the ones that are used have been greatly edited through this process. It really is a very rigorous process. So you end up with this item bank of hundreds of questions. There was almost 200 preservation questions. And then out of all these hundreds and hundreds of questions, 100 are selected for the exam each year. And then a different group of certified archivists judge how difficult that set of questions is, and that determines the passing grade for that exam. So it's less how well other people are doing on the exam than how well you're doing with the questions and how difficult that set of questions was determined to be by these experts. So, an example of how an exam question is developed. As an example, you could go into the preservation protection area. You can see that one of the tasks in that domain is ensure the correct long-term storage of records and papers by such techniques as using proper containers and encasements, using acceptable shelving, and maintaining acceptable environmental controls. So that's one of the tasks. One of the knowledge statements is archivists know and can apply knowledge about the causes and consequences of the deterioration of various media and formats. So from this domain, from this test, from this knowledge statement, you can see why this question that I'm going to bring up in just a second is a question that legitimately can be asked of a professional archivist. So a question that has been retired is, what are the recommended storage conditions for the permanent preservation of color film? You can see the RH is the same for each, so pretty much comes down to what temperature: 67 degrees, 45 degrees, 37 degrees, or 26 degrees. Is there anybody who wants to take a stab at this before I move on and show you the answer?
I would guess colder is better.
Okay, so you're going for
26.
And you would be correct.
Ah.
Yes, you're off the hook. So again, it's important to read the questions carefully. So I highlighted two of the most important words in this whole thing. One is permanent preservation, and the other one's color film. And so at 30 to 40% RH, you're looking at 26 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, keep in mind, if the RH is higher, your temperature should be lower. So a lot of people who try and preserve color film on a permanent basis are actually going for 0 degrees Fahrenheit just to allow for greater RH. Now you're going, well, but things freeze at 32 degrees. No, water freezes at 32 degrees, but not all chemical reactions stop at 32 degrees. Water does, but not other stuff. And basically, the deterioration of color film is, a chemical reaction that's going on. So to really get that down to where it's a real slow deterioration, so you can consider it permanent, it's 26 degrees at that RH. Now, the rest of this you wouldn't be seeing. You can see there's a little footnote there, a citation. When we write the questions, we just don't make them up out of thin air. Each question has to have a citation that goes along with it. Again, you don't see it when you're taking the exam, but it's there. In this case, the citation is Ritzenthaler's Photographs book, which was from printed by SAA in 2006, and you can see the page number there too. So again, it has to be, the questions have to be based on some well-respected part of the literature in the profession. So that's why you need to read broadly to be prepared for the exam. Now, another question is, to give you something totally different, this would be in domain 7 since it's legal in nature. Which one of the following categories of government documents is expressly covered by the United States Freedom of Information Act, which is often called FOIA? Is it the judicial branch, the executive branch, the legislative branch, or all records of the federal government? Well, as you can see, the correct answer is it's just the executive branch. And you can see domain 7, task 3, knowledge statement 703, and the citation down below. Again, you'd only be seeing the upper half of the slide when taking the exam, but trust me, all that other stuff down below is there when the question was created and reviewed when the exam is later then put together. So, how to apply? You know, go to our website and download the application, or use the online form. The online form's real easy. That's the way almost everybody does it nowadays. Let's see here. Oh, and as I said, at the website is also, as I mentioned before, the exam handbook. Again, that's a PDF. You can download it. There are a few sample questions there. There's a sample bibliography there. I'll get into that a little bit later, but there's a lot of information there, including the whole RDS and its task statements and knowledge statements. Supplemental information that you need to have to apply. Now, if you're going for provisional status, all you need is your graduate school transcript, and you need to have, even if you haven't graduated yet, you should be attaching that, but then expect that when you do graduate, that you're going to have to be in touch with the Region for Exam Administration again to give them the transcript as of the time you graduate. Now, if you're going for non-provisional status, going straight for being fully certified, you would also need to include your official job description or descriptions if your professional experience came in more than one job, and a supervisor's letter. And again, if you aren't going provisional, make sure you give yourself plenty of time to gather all these supporting materials. You know, you might want your supervisor to quickly write you a letter, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to do it, at least not on as timely basis as you'd like. So, again, the application, there is an application fee, non-refundable, $50 if you applied between February 15th and May 31st, but if it's by February 15th or before, you get to pay only $25, half off, for the early bird fee. And I'll tell you more about the early bird deadline in just a minute or two, because there's another benefit to applying early. There is a limited amount of money for a travel award if you need to go far away. If there aren't any nearby exam locations, you could apply for that. Now, where to take the exam? This year, the exam will be given August 2nd. It is always given the week of the SA meeting, and one of the locations is always wherever the SA annual meeting site is. Also, these other sites, these predetermined sites, if you will, they change every year. So, you know, I forget how long it's been. Well, I can tell you I'm hosting the one in Worcester. It's been over a dozen years since we last hosted it in Worcester, Massachusetts. So they rotate all around. And yes, We do only give the exam once per year. There are only approximately, ballpark figure, 200 people taking it per year, and going through the process of creating a reliable exam is such that we just don't have the wherewithal to be able to do this multiple times a year, especially since there's, only about 200 people taking it per year. Now, in addition to these predetermined sites, there is also the possibility of creating a pick your site. So you're allowed to attempt to get a site wherever you want it. And here's the other benefit of applying early. If you apply during the early bird period, it only takes 3 applicants all wanting the same location for it to become a pick your site. For the normal deadline after the early bird deadline, it takes 5 applicants to create an exam location. So network with others in your area, nominate your desired city when you apply. And just as an example, in 2016, there were 20 exam locations. Most years it's around 16 or 18 locations. So so the ones that you're seeing at the top are just the ones we're starting with, and then you fill in from there. What you would do to do a pick your site is you'd pick the site that's already been determined that's best for you, and then it says, oh, do you want to nominate another location as a pick your site, and then you put it in. An example of how this works, so people can do this just on their own, one-offs, just put down your whatever city you want, and hopefully other people get on board. The other thing that can happen, and has happened, is people gathering together and coordinating things. And a great example for you people in the San Jose program is 2 years ago, there were, I was on the application committee at that point. Within just a couple hours time, we had 3 applications come in, all from San Jose State students, all living in Salt Lake City, all putting down Salt Lake City as their pick your site. And because it was during the early bird period, they got Salt Lake City as their pick your site. So again, if you know of other people who are thinking about taking the exam, I'd encourage you to coordinate with them. Another example is a few years ago, there was a thread on the Hawaiian archivists listserv, and they coordinated. They said, okay, this is the year we're bringing it to Honolulu, and sure enough, they ended up with 6 people all putting down Honolulu as the pick your site. And so it's a way of really lowering the cost, not just with the application fee, which is only half cost, but also the cost of possibly going to a city that isn't as convenient as it could be. So, go out there and get a convenient location for you. Preparing for the exam. You should be reading broadly in the professional literature. Again, the handbook for archival certification has a list of suggested readings. So there's one area where we have in the handbook sort of a bibliography of suggested readings. I remember in the preservation area, I think it was a listing of 7 sources that you should read. That's not to say that all of the questions will necessarily come from those 7 sources. That is unlikely to be the case. What I can tell you, though, is that those were again, I think it was 7 sources for preservation. Those were the 7 sources that had the most questions in the item bank. And so the odds were best if you read those that you'd be covering as many bases as possible. Again, hopefully you're reading even more broadly than that, but those 7 are a good place to start. Also an FYI, if there is, you may be familiar with the SAA fundamental series. If there is a fundamental series book in a particular domain, you definitely want to be reading from that. That is a source that's used a lot. But again, you should be reading a lot more broadly than that. Again, the bibliography is there to help you. It's not a complete list. Let's see here. Yeah, and yes, what you're preparing for is 100 questions, and the exam takes 3 hours, or you're allowed to take 3 hours. Most people don't use that whole time. Exam results. 1 or 2 months after taking the exam, you will get the results. You know, historically, what have the exam results been like? Well, the pass point for the exam varies from year to year, depending on the difficulty of the questions. As I said, we get a number of expert archivists in to judge how difficult that year's questions are. And literally, you're sitting down and looking at each question and determining how difficult each question is, and then just combining those pass points. You have a separate pass point for each question. That's really kind of irrelevant to you, but that's how the overall pass point is created, by merging all those individual pass points. In recent years, the pass point for the exam has ranged from the high 80s to the mid 70s. Again, it moves around depending upon the difficulty of that year's exam. In recent years, the percentage of people who have passed the exam has ranged from the mid 70% to the mid 80s. Excuse me, I need a drink of water. And nobody has ever gotten a perfect score. So if you're sitting down to take the exam and there's a question that you cannot answer, don't worry. You know, you've got you've got plenty of questions. You know, just do your best on, and if you've studied well, you know, you're likely to pass. Absolutely. So at any rate, fees associated with certification, there's a $50 fee at time of application unless you go early bird for half price. Then there's a certification fee of $150 that's due within 30 days of becoming certified. But again, only if you're fully certified. Provisional people who are certified provisionally don't have to pay that until they become fully certified. And the $150 includes your dues up until the next July 1st. Dues are due every July 1st, and you wouldn't have to pay your dues for that partial year that you are certified. And again, annual dues, $50 every July 1st. Recertification. Now, this isn't important to you at this juncture, but I see this as one of the most important things for certification, is that unlike a library degree where you can get your degree and then for some reason the library profession thinks you're always qualified no matter how much or how little continuing education you have. No, here in the archival profession, you have to recertify once every 5 years to prove that, you know, to show indications that you have kept up with the profession. So happens that 2019 is my year for recertification, so I've already started to collect my information I need. There's no cost to recertify. You can retake the exam. However, most people try to avoid that, and so they try and recertify through petition. More information there. And again, the petitioning process is simple if you are prepared. Hopefully, as a professional archivist, you keep your personal archives as well organized as you keep those archives that you're in charge of at work. If you keep your records well organized, the petitioning process is easy. And then some information about ACA online, Facebook, our web page, Twitter, LinkedIn. There you go. So at any rate, hopefully, come on, there we go. Yeah, hopefully, if you have any questions, you can contact. Hopefully, you'll have any questions you have will be answered on our website. But if not, you can contact our office or the officer in question at the at that website. You can get the contact information. So, what questions are there? Any questions for me to answer after all that?
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to see here if we have any questions on the chat box. Don't think we have any currently, but you were very thorough. So,
well, we've done this.
That helps.
Yeah, we've done this a number of times, and actually, a number of the slides have come from questions that people have previously asked. And so, once you hear the same question a few times, you know that you need to incorporate it into the slide presentation.
All right, here. So we have one. Catherine wants to know if there actually is a pre-approved list of SJSU classes that qualify.
That is my understanding. I was told that, I believe it was Courtney who said that some of the classes are pre-qualified. It is a process that we just started a couple of years ago to make the whole application process easier for us to determine what courses qualified, but also less stressful on the applicants so that they would know ahead of time that certain classes did qualify. Again, if Courtney knows, then more about where you find at your website, which is already pre-approved, that'd be great.
Hi, Mott. It's Dara Baker. I just wanted to introduce myself to everyone on the call. I'm actually the ACA current regent for outreach. I wanted to put a plug in for doing your certification as a provisional, which is what I did when I graduated from school. I became a provisional certified archivist in 2012 and got my certification in 2013. I did it mostly because I knew myself and how I was going to study, so I figured after grad school was the best time to do it. So anyone is also welcome to reach out to me. Mott, that was a really wonderful summary and a lot of information to absorb at once. So if you've got questions, please let us know.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dara. And thank you for including, there's a link there in the group chat box to the ACA pre-approved classes at SJSU. So that's perfect.
I actually studied with one of my fellow students. We read all of the fundamental series books on top of some of the articles when we took the exam. The one thing I would say is the exam is going to test you on things that you don't think you're going to use as an archivist. but you never know what kind of job you're going to get when you leave school. So things will surprise you that come in handy.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I remember I was a business archivist at the beginning of my career, and so a lot of the legal questions were so hard for me to study just because they didn't pertain to me at all. You know, like that FOIA question that was the FOIA example question that I gave. You know, it's tough enough to study legal things, but when you know they don't pertain to you, it's even tougher. But you never know. I mean, people go from one part, you know, I started as a business archivist, went to an academic archivist. A lot of people just move from area to area. And so you really do need to have a broad understanding.
Definitely. Mhm. Yeah, so let's see. Do we have any other questions that anyone has?
If you want to just unmute your microphone too, if you just have a quick shout out for a question that you want to ask, feel free to unmute your microphone and just go ahead and ask it now. I will say we're going to include some of the information here. Like Dara, thank you for submitting that link in the chat box. We'll kind of compile some information that you guys might be interested in having. Some of the contact information that Dr. Linn shared with us for to find out more, so we can, the PDF for the handbook, so we can look for some of that information that and resources that were brought up. So when there will be a recording of this event on our website, SAASC website, and included in the information for the recording, we'll make sure then have some of these links available and contact information for you guys to reach out and ask questions that maybe you didn't think of tonight that you'd like to get answers to. Does anybody have anything else that they want to ask before we...
Well, you know, if not, I wish you all the best with your studies and again, to prepare for your preparations to take the ACA exam, and then in the more distant future with your profession that you're heading into.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. Was really helpful. I hadn't been considering doing the exam just yet. Still a few years off, so, but it actually is really helpful for me to think about how to prepare for it as I kind of finish up my schooling. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And I found it when I took the exam, I took it, you know, at the end of my master's degree. I mean, some people think, well, I want to have time to study for it more, but, you know, you're kind of studying a lot for it right now by taking your classes. And so hopefully your classes are preparing you well. And as a result, you know, it's fresh in your mind.
Yeah, and I think too, being able to kind of access some of the resources that you suggested, that places where these questions are coming from, so we can kind of think about the exam as we're studying, think about what kinds of things we're learning and how they might apply, how they might show up on this test. And, and I think that helps solidify the things that we're learning, because we do learn a lot of things that you think, oh, as you said, I'll never apply that. I'll never quite use that because I'm going into this different kind of, I think that I'm going into this different kind of archive as a profession. But as you said, you never know. So it's good to think about it as we're preparing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think if we don't have anything else here to add, or there's no more questions. We're gonna, yes, we will send a link out of the recording to the registrants, but we'll also, like I said, have a recording posted on our website. We will submit an announcement about the recording too through Facebook and Twitter and through Canvas as well. So there's going to be multiple ways for you to link back and find the recording to this event so that you can go back and review information that maybe you missed. Oh, are any of us heading to SSA, CIMA, or MAC? Look out for the ACA table. I just want to mention that from the chat box, just so you guys hear it. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Mott.
Absolutely.
All right,
Mark,
Courtney.
and we hope to see everyone at our next event at the end of the month to learn about business archives.
Yes.
Yay.
And look for information about that. We'll be posting that official information about it pretty soon, and you can register soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good night, everybody. I think we're going to go ahead and end the meeting now. So,
Have a good night.
night.
Good night.